You ever heard of Marvel's Death's Head? Whether or not you have, his story is very interesting, connects three very different universes and three very different kinds of characters together. The year is 1987. A series of shorts on the Tracy Ullman Show introduces the world to the yellow-skinned Simpsons. A baby is born into the world and is named Michael B. Jordan. Little do his parents or him know he would grow up to be a famous actor. And Aretha Franklin becomes the first woman inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. When May brings its flowers, a comic is released. Seemingly completely innocuous, this comic would connect worlds. This comic was the Transformers number 113, and it hit the UK market on the 16th, introducing Death's Head to the world. Now, if you're familiar with this story, you may be thinking, that's not right, he first appeared in the backup comic High Noon Tex, but this is actually a common misconception that I will come back to later. But back to issue 113, aka Wanted, Galvatron, Dead or Alive, the start of this comic reveals that Rodimus Prime, which in my opinion kind of sounds like a parody name, but Rodimus has put a bounty on, well, the titular Galvatron. We join Death's Head conversing with a bartender about the aforementioned bounty. We learn it is a bounty for 10,000 Shannocks, which is apparently a nice chunk of change. When the bartender refers to Death's Head as a bounty hunter, Death's Head is outraged and grabs the bartender by the throat and clarifies he is a freelance peacekeeping agent. The bartender then drops exposition on us, recapping parts of Transformers the movie, which explains why Rodimus seeks Galvatron. After getting this info, Death's Head attacks the bartender and leaves him prone on the ground rather than paying his bill. Taking off in his spaceship, he tracks down Cyclonus and Scourge, Galvatron's lieutenants, on Cybertron. He then attacks the two, using threats and violence to get the answers and hopefully find the bounty he seeks. This is when he learns of a time machine and uses it to go back in time where he assumes Galvatron fled, and that is how issue 113 ends. It turns out he went back to 1987, we find out in issue 114, and many Autobots followed Death's Head back through time to try to take on Galvatron, but when they finally got an attack against him, they all got sent back to their own time, the future of 2007. Unfortunately, Galvatron had a device on him that allowed him to stay in the past where he was. As he was a popular character at the time, Death's Head popped up a few more times throughout Transformers comics, but the next important arc I want to talk about is the legacy of Unicron, starting in Transformers issue 146. This issue starts with Death's Head once again hunting Scourge and Cyclonus, this time over the planet Junk. They both wind up on the actual planet itself, but their battle is interrupted by an inhabitant of the planet, a Junkion, who asks Death's Head for help, offering to pay him all the riches he can imagine in exchange for freeing his mind-controlled people. This Junkion also convinces Death's Head not to kill Scourge and Cyclonus, saying they may need their help for this one. The Junkion then actually leads them into a trap, and we find out that Unicron is mind-controlling all the Junkions on the planet, including the one that tricked our reluctant heroes into this area. All three of them fall under the Unicron's mind control. But an important thing to note here is Death's Head seems to have an uncanny resistance to the mind control. While he still is influenced by Unicron, he retains a lot of his personality and is eventually able to scheme a way to break free from Unicron's control. This all crescendos with Autobots coming to the planet, and in issue 151, when trying to escape an explosion, Death's Head is forced to jump through yet another time portal. After this, he was written out of Transformers continuity
and we'll move into another comic series. But first, I need to address something. The misconception I brought up earlier. You see, many people believe that Death's first appearance was in High Noon Tex, a one-page comic in which Death's kills a robot named Tex after he had a bounty taking out Tex's brother, and Tex had attempted to retaliate. People often think that Marvel purposely published this story first because of the rights deals at the time if they made the character in his own story before publishing him in Transformers, he was technically a Marvel character and not a Transformers character. This is actually incorrect, as this comic did not appear until a year after the first Transformers comic he was in, issue 113, was published. It seems that at the time, the copyright regarding which characters were Marvel characters and which characters were Transformers characters were a lot looser or a lot more complicated than we thought. Another reason I think this misconception is commonly thought to be correct is because High Noon Tex is the first comic appearing in the incomplete Death's Head graphic novel, while Death's Head 2 is trying to learn the memories of Death's Head 1.
If you're enjoying this video, consider checking out my Patreon. The voicing, editing, visuals, everything that goes in this video is all one person, and that's me. And I really would like to do this for a living, and I currently have no patrons, so if you want to be my first patron, go check out my Patreon, and that's patreon.com/DookieClips. But anyway, while the TARDIS, yes, Doctor Who's TARDIS, is traveling in the story Crossroads of Time from the Doctor Who magazine, issue 135, released in April 1988, it collides with another time-traveling being. That's right, Death's Head. Now, if it wasn't obvious, or you're not aware of Transformers sizes, they are large beings, about 30 feet tall. When Death's Head threatens the Doctor retaliates by using his tissue compression eliminator to shrink the robot down to his size. The Doctor was actually intending to make him microscopic and is surprised by the shrinking outcome. After this, the Doctor ends up tricking Death's Head by saying he will give him the TARDIS, but actually just sends him to Earth, specifically in the year 8162. We next meet back up with him in November of 1988 in the pages of Dragon's Claws number 5. If we're not counting his silhouette in issue 4, which I am not, where he teams up with the villainous team Evil Dead, no, not the one with the Deadites, before he gets half destroyed by Dragon's Claws. Death's Head got his own comic series starting in December of 1988. In issue 1, we find out Sprat, a member of the Chain Gang, rebuilt Death's Head, and, after the dissolution of the Chain Gang, at the hands of Dragon Claws in issue 2 of Death's Head, Sprat and Death's Head team up and start a freelance peacekeeping business together, much to Death's Head's dismay. Issue 8 of this series is our next big change.
Death's Head runs into the Doctor from Doctor Who once again.
While trying to steal the TARDIS, Death's Head ends up in New York, specifically in the 616 universe, aka the regular Marvel universe. And more specifically, he ends up on the roof of the Fantastic Four's HQ, the Baxter Building. And yet again, a fight starts. But a team-up ensues when the building's defenses turn against all of them. And by all of them, I mean both the Fantastic Four and him. After saving Reed and Sue's son, Franklin, Reed offers to send Death's Head home. But when Death's Head admits that he's a killer at the last second, Reed tries to cancel the time travel, but instead sends the robot to the year 2020. Then, in issue 10, he has a fight with Iron Man 2020 before Sprat comes in with his spaceship.
Obviously, this is not a complete history of Death's Head, and I wanted to try to keep this video shorter, so I did not go into depth on all of the stories that Death's Head's in, nor go fully into all of his origin. Interactions like his first meeting with the Doctor are expanded upon, and we actually find out that this is not the first time the Doctor has met Death's Head in his timeline, but it was the first time Death's Head remembered meeting the Doctor in his timeline. And this all gets very confusing, and I didn't want to try to explain all that and get into it, and so there is a lot I've left out. So if you're interested in this character, go research Death's Head on your own and read the associated comics. I just wanted to give kind of a brief rundown of how he got from Transformers, met Doctor Who, and ended up finally in Marvel.
In March 1992, the first issue of Death's Head 2 hit shelves, and in this series, we meet Minion, a robot built by AIM to travel around and kill the strongest warriors to assimilate their abilities and protect AIM. When Minion kills Death's Head, he doesn't only get his abilities, but also, Death's Head personality is so strong, it takes over Minion, and he becomes Death's Head 2. The interesting thing about this is, we already saw that Death's Head was good against mind control and similar abilities when he was able to withstand the influence of Unicron in the Transformers comics. Now, he continued and does continue to be a player in comics, and he even had a new series as recently as 2019. But overall, he is one of the most interesting and convoluted, I say convoluted with love, backstories of any character I have ever looked into.